I will try to, let's say, tell something about the flaviviruses and about the influenza. It is the hot subjects, I think, in the especially in the recent years. I wish to thank all the attendees that have a time and possibility to join this webinar, and I hope that they will find some interesting data about the subject of this of my talk. You will excuse me if I maybe my English is not so good, but if I have some problems, I think that we will solve it in the meantime. Okay, my name is, as Steven mentioned, Tamaš Petrović, and I'm working on the virology department in the Scientific Veterinary Institute Novi Sad now for almost 30 years, and let's say, especially in the last 10 or 15 years, working more on flaviviruses, but also all the time working also on the influenza virus detection. I chose these, let's say, 3 viruses. So from the group of flaviviruses, I will talk a little bit more about West Nile and Usutu virus. And of course, avian influenza is a broad subject of, let's say, a lot of different type of viruses. So it will be mentioned from European perspective, but also I will focus more on, let's say, on the region and on Serbia as, let's say, the one of the transmission route of wild birds and that are transmitting this, because the natural hosts of these viruses are wild birds, different species, but the wild birds anyway. We're talking about, we're starting with flaviviruses, and we talk about Flaviviridae family. So it is a huge number of viruses in, let's say, in different genera. Some of them are vector-borne, some of them are not vector-borne, some of them are pathogenic, some are not pathogenic. So it is a quite, let's say, wide picture of the viruses. We're talking about the genera, flavivirus. So also a lot of species, virus species. I'm working with viruses, flaviviruses more than 10 years, and there's many of them that I never heard about it. So some of them are, let's say, of some health, let's say, health problem that cause to the animals or humans. But a lot of them are also the viruses of insects or the vectors, and some of them are totally not pathogenic at all. Anyway, I will talk a bit, or these ones that I, let's say, on the screen on the right side. It is the, let's say, most important to from the animal and human health, and some of them are, let's say, vector-borne. Some of them are most tick-borne, like the 2 that are up the line. So tick-borne encephalitis and looping virus. And those below are, let's say, mosquito-borne viruses. These viruses that are bolded, it is, let's say, found in Europe, they circulate in Europe, and it is normally found in Europe, and the others are maybe present from time to time. And all these viruses, I will talk a bit more about the West Nile and Usutu virus, since, especially in the last 10 years, they spread all over the Europe, and let's say, we see the emergence of both viruses. It is both geographically and on intensive circulation. So both viruses, West Nile and Usutu, have the same transmission cycle, so almost the same natural hosts. It is mainly the wild birds from the Passerine order. So there are a lot of bird species, mainly songing birds. And the vector of these viruses is mosquitoes. In our region and in most of the Europe, it is mostly Culex species are the transmitting the virus, but also there are some other mosquitoes that could transmit the virus for this our region, for example here in Serbia, and due to some let's say studies done even this year, it's a different biotypes of Culex pipiens. I will not go more deep in that because I'm not an entomologist, but even in that case, we found that positive virus that we found a positive for the West Nile. Those mosquitoes are mainly of biotype Culex pipiens. Anyway, it is just the preliminary data. It will have to be confirmed by more study. And it is a natural circulation of the virus. Okay, the virus also could infect other hosts, mammals or birds. And among them, let's say we could say that horses and humans, and also, let's say, geese, exhibit some kind of clinical manifestation of disease. That clinical manifestation, but anyway, with or without clinical manifestation of disease, all these accidental infections are dead end for the virus transmission, since the viremia that are found in those infected animals or humans are not enough to further be, let's say, transmitted by vectors bite and transmitted further. So it is the end of the transmission in that way. Anyway, let's say that just a moment to see. Okay. What can I say about the clinical manifestation of disease? Mostly it is a mild disease, some kind of, sometimes they pass like in fevers, sometimes like flu, in both occasions. And only the very, let's say, low percent of the infected people or animals, we're talking about horses in this time, could exhibit some neurological disorders due to the infection of the, let's say, central nervous system. So they found some encephalitis and meningoencephalitis, and it is all mainly in the older people or in, for example, immunocompromised persons. In that case, it could be found some very serious illness and even deaths. The first, let's say, data about the presence of this virus in the region dated almost in 70s. There are a limited study done by serology and by ELISA and the methods that was available at that time. And for example, it was detected in 2.6 to 4.7 human sera in northern part of the Serbia. Then another study in 1991, it was done in the, let's say, territory of the all ex-Yugoslavia republics. And mainly it was from 1 to 3% of seropositives. Maybe in Serbia, there was in some region more, about up to 8%. And even a more recent study that was done in between 2005 2010 collected human samples from the, let's say, people who exhibit some neurological disorders, and those samples was Sara was checked for the presence of the antibodies, and you see here it's only 4%. So it is maybe something circulated, but due to the known fact that by antibodies, because the fly viruses are very closely related, so it could not be distinguished between is it antibodies to the West Nile or some other fly virus. Anyway, we have maybe luck, or I don't know. It was just not done because any reason. We start to testing the horses. Let's see what happened with horses in the Sara, and we test a lot of different diseases, and also tested the West Nile. It is from Sara collected at the end of 2009 and beginning of 2010. And out of 350 samples collected from the north part of the Serbia, as you see on the map on the right side, we found 12% of seropositive animals, and it is 12% meaning that it is confirmed by the plaque reduction neutralization test. So it is a real 12% positive antibodies on West Nile. So it was for us very surprised because the disease was not present in the country. Nobody talk about it. We don't have a clinical manifestation disease or not what recognized. So, okay, we do it again next year. The same territory, almost the same animals. And at the time, we found 28% of the seropositive. So just in 1 year. and it was okay. It's something going on, and we do it in 2012 again, and it was almost 50% of seropositive animals. So it's meaning that we, let's say, have luck that start to testing in the right time. I don't know now or in that time why it's emerged so quickly and in so greatly. What was the reason for that? But anyway, we in 2012 was the first clinically evident human outbreak, and I will talk about it a little more later. But it was the first evident outbreak of disease in humans in Serbia. Okay, because of that, we started to see what's happening with the, let's say, natural hosts, and we tested wild birds. It was in the end of 2011, beginning 2012, and you see that on the slide, almost 134 birds from 44 species are tested. Some of them just serologically, some of them are tested because they die on a rehabilitation center or found dead. We tested the tissues and the organs of those birds, and we found some seropositive. But what was very interesting that almost 10% of the animals that die or found dead are positive for the presence of the virus. And you see here the bird species that was detected positive and the locations. Again, it is the north part of the country. And mainly the goshawks and other raptors were included, including corvids, including gulls and pheasants, but it was a situation. We sequenced in the whole genome one of the isolate, and it was the first sequence isolate of S. Nile from Serbia, and it was showed that it is a lineage 2 of the virus. And from that time, so it's from 2012 until today, we have the circulation in Serbia only the lineage 2 of S. Nile virus. We didn't find any isolate of other lineages of S. Nile virus here. Also, we do some sequencing, but not in whole genome, some other strains that we detected in the time, and we found that all of them are very closely related to the, let's say, Hungarian type virus isolate from Goshawk from 2004, as well as the, let's say, human isolate from Greece from the outbreak from 2010. So it is the whole region was quite, let's say, correlated viruses. Then in 2012, as I already mentioned, the first human outbreak was evident with 71 human cases. It is a great thing that you have. Before that, we don't have any kind of manifestation of disease, and you have 1 year 71 human cases. It is a lot of, and it caused a lot of problem with the health service because they was not prepared for such a thing. And we have 9 deaths in that time. A year later, 2013, okay, we tried to test the mosquitoes, and the mosquitoes were collected on, let's say, 20 locations. Some of them are sampled, let's say, in 2 weeks interval. Some of them just once or in twice. It is depending. But out of 300 collected mosquito pools, we found mosquito pools. It's meaning that we test up to 50 individuals in one pool. And we found that almost 10% of the pools was positive for the presence of the virus. It was quite high when you imagine that such a number of mosquitoes in the environment is positive for the virus. And at that time, it was the first big human outbreak in Serbia with more than 300 reported and confirmed cases, out of which almost 250 neuroinvasive disease and 35 deaths. So it was a quite problem. And from that time, okay, I will show you again the biggest one, the outbreak in Serbia. It was the biggest in the whole Europe. You see the HCDC map on the left side. So it's burning. The whole Europe is, or let's say, south and central part of the Europe burned from the infection. And you see on the right side that Serbia, so almost whole country was affected. And it was more than 400 West Nile neuroinvasive disease cases reported, and 36 deaths. And we found virus circulation, reported human cases from 17 out of, in total, 25 districts in Serbia. And it was the first time that the Human Health Service realized, before the COVID era, that it was not enough places and not enough beds, not enough respirators for the patients. That was because most of them let's say, exhibit the severe clinical signs about the end of August and during September or something like that. So you have in one very short time the huge number of the cases, and it was a quite problem for how to manipulate with that. Regarding the first, let's say, when we do the first testing, as I show, after that, we realized that could be a quite big problem, and the problem is rising. So we discussed with our colleagues from Veterinary Directorate about the possibilities, and together with them, we, let's say, start to prepare the surveillance program. And the first time that was applied, it was for 2014. It was the integrated surveillance program, and it is funded by the Veterinary Directorate, and it is applied for each year. It is changed by each year depending on the new data situation, etc. So if you excuse 2016 and 2020, we applied this surveillance program in all the years between 2014 and today. The main aim of this program was the early detection of the virus presence in the environment. Due to the on-time information, the health service to inform the community and to, let's say, rise up the preventive measures from one side, and on other side to, let's say, inform the local authorities, local municipalities, and to start to control the mosquitoes, to prevent the biggest outbreak and epidemic. Our program is also based mainly on 3 pillars. One pillar is based on the sentinel animals. So by serology testing, we try to find early detection of the raising up the serology presence, the serology presence of the virus in the environment. The second pillar is detection of the virus by molecular methods in natural hosts, so the wild birds. And the third one is related to the virus detection in the mosquitoes by molecular methods. And it is applied for, let's say, different bit changes in different year, but it is implemented until today, and it is very, it is also published, so more than one paper about it. And it is I will just very shortly pass some data just to see about this surveillance. So you see here, for example, 2018, it was as I mentioned, it was the biggest outbreak until now. So it is the data about the found positive horses during 2018, and the number of districts and the number of positive horses per district. And wild birds, it was by swabbing some wild birds, we found more than 6.5% of virus positive birds, and we're talking about the found dead wild birds, or some shot wild birds, we found more than 11% of the presence positive for the presence of the virus. We're talking about the mosquitoes. You see here the region that was found positive and the number of positive pools. Can you imagine that out of tested, that more than 12% pools was positive for the presence of the West Nile virus? And we're talking about the whole country. When we're talking about the northern part of the country where it is endemic now, and when we have the, let's say, more intensive circulation, it was in some region up to 30% of the pools of mosquitoes was positive on the presence of the virus. And here you see let's say, our data from surveillance, and on the left side regarding all the pillars, and on the right side the reported human cases to the ACDC and to our National Institute for Public Health. So as you see here, it was quite, let's say, manageable, and we found the virus circulation in all the parts, even in more than part than human cases was present. And it was like this picture. It is, let's say, depending on the year. So after that, again, we have the bigger outbreak in 2012. Then we have almost very low number of human cases in 2023, especially 2024. Weather was okay from one side, so temperature was okay, but it was dry. So it was many reasons should be implemented or should be on time and should be, let's say, in correlation that you have the outbreak, the bigger outbreak. So we realized until now that we have a bigger outbreak each 4 or 5 years, but it is, of course, depending on the many factors. So it is just let's say, not scientifically evident things. We're talking about the Usutu virus. It happened, let's say, first data reported in Europe was in 2001. and it was detected in Turdus merula, or the blackbird, the dying around the city of Vienna in Austria. And from that time, as you see here on the slide, it was reported cases in the wild birds for 2002, and on the right side 2016. It not spread like so fast like it in the picture, because many of these cases was many of this let's say intensive spreading due to the let's say more testing of the virus presence, or realize that the virus is present, so starting testing of the virus presence. But anyway, the virus let's say emerged and they spread, and I could say that almost in the whole Europe are present. It is the same story with the West Nile. So West Nile was Italy, Greece, Romania in this part, and we now have it even a lot of cases in Germany. So it's going up due to the climate change, due to some other factors. So it is spreading anyway. The first data about the let's say the Usutu virus presence in Serbia, it was confirmed by the antibodies, the presence of antibodies in human, horses, and birds, as well as about the presence of the virus in mosquitoes. The first data about the presence of, let's say, serology in horses was done in that testing that was done for West Nile. In that time, we found that one horse was quite positive for Usutu virus. Also in 2012, it was found among the tested birds for West Nile, was found a few of them that was positive for Usutu virus. Then in human Sara, it was detected in about 2014. It was testing was done, but with ELISA test, to be honest, and it was found in about 5%. Then also let's say mosquitoes, the first data was from 2015 in about more than 200 mosquito pools. In that time, the virus was found in 2 samples. Some more testing was done in 2017, and you see on the picture north part of the country, and we found only 3 positive out of a little more than 100 tested pools. And it is not huge prevalence, but they are circulating. In 2018, that was, if you remember, the biggest outbreak in Europe and also in Serbia of West Nile. But can you see here about the presence of the Usutu virus? Almost 10% of the mosquito pools was positive for Usutu virus. So, and we realized that in thinking about that, Usutu virus is circulating, let's say, maybe 1/3 or 1/5 of the West Nile circulation in the area. So all the data showing that, until we tested for example, 2024, and we found quite low prevalence. It was 3.23%, but it was the same prevalence or almost the same prevalence of West Nile. So it was So it is not although the almost same animals are natural hosts, and same mosquitoes are competent vectors. There are some factors that are not the same for both those 2 viruses. So there are something that is different. So the circulation is not exactly the same of those both viruses. We sequenced the 2 strains from 2017, 2 isolates of Usutu virus, and we found it was found to belong to the Europe 2 lineage of this virus. Okay, it is something that was I mentioned to mention you to regarding the fly viruses. I think that we will expect for the further spreading and further due to some climatic the additional climate change and raising up the different kind of the mosquitoes from the tropical part. They will exhibit a lot of other fly viruses presence also in the future, but and also the spreading of the existing one more wider geographical areas. So I think that we will deal with these viruses and these zoonotic viruses in the future also. When talking about avian influenza, it is when I started to work, it was just a story that my very old colleague, they retired, and I was happy to be, let's say, to learn from him about for 1 or 2 years. He told me when I think about what I do for research and what will be my subject, and he always told me, just do the influenza. You will always have something to do it, something to work. So it is something that never be, let's say, something that not interesting to the people. For sure, we will not forget the 2018 and the Spanish flu. It is a picture that should be on our mind when we're talking about avian influenza, because it is the virus that could exhibit a huge, let's say, epidemic in both human and animal population. So it is always the something that we have to have on our minds. Of course, now today the medical service and all the things are much on the higher level, etc. But anyway, you never know what could happen. I will talk about, let's say, from 2016, 17 until today, because before that we have a let's say moderate or lower load sequential of the virus. Before that we have about 2005, 2006 some let's say more evident presence of the avian influenza, with, if you remember, with H5N1 at that time. But the real peak was coming in 2016, 2017. It was H5N8 strain. And I will just pass this, let's say, slide. It is in viable situation. And you see later on, again, very low circulation, and from, let's say, 2020 until today, with peaks in 2012, 2022, 2023, and 2021. It was quite evident, and now it's still emerging, the virus. So something changed regarding the virus, and I will talk about it during the presentation. It is a situation in domestic birds, so similar or very same, let's say, peaks. So it is connected, of course. And it is from, let's say, the last 2 years, because we see before 2023. But as you see, it is also not so high, but there are constant circulation of the virus in the we're talking now about the Europe, okay. Situation in Europe 2016, 2017, the blue circles are outbreak in wild birds, and the red one in the outbreak in domestic population of domestic birds or the domestic poultry. And it was a situation in those 2 years. In Serbia, it was the first evident presence of the virus was of course, in wild bird, in swans, mostly in swans in Serbia. It was end of November 2016, and you see here the Koil swamp. It is very near the city of Novi Sad, and a lot of swans on the lake, and a lot of them died, of course. And it is a situation where we have the problem because we have the very clear near the houses, the backyards. When talking about the domestic poultry in Serbia, it is we are very happy that only the some cases the domestic poultry from backyards was infected. We have not experienced the infection of the domestic poultry in the big intensive production farms or in backyards. And you see here the situation there, the connection between the ducks, domestic ducks, and the geese with the swans, and of course it was natural to have infection in those backyards. It is a picture of another part of the Serbia. It is the 2016-2017 cases. If you remember from West Nile and Usutu, it is the same territory. So it is the same area. It is another part of the country, very a flat area with a lot of, let's say, water, rivers and lakes and swamp areas. So the migratory birds, and it's a very, very interesting area to rest a bit during the migration, or even to feed some time on the area before they move forward. And so because of that, we have the possibility to see all the pathology of the wild birds that exhibit on this area. So it was a case in 2016, 2017 in Serbia. And you see in this map, it is a bit, let's say, not so close like the previous slide. But anyway, you see here with, for example, problems in Hungary, a lot of outbreaks in domestic poultry, since they have open intensive production of ducks, and many ducks, and due to that, they are very direct connection to the wild birds, so they have a quite problem, and millions of poultry was killed then and later on. But of course, we don't have that problem, so we are quite lucky. But a lot of, especially in France and other parts of Europe, have a quite big problem with influenza at that time. and it will be the some story until 2023-24, when some other story will happen. I will talk about that later on. It is just a very short picture about the presence of the wild birds that we detected in swans, herons, and buzzards. Also in domestic poultry, chicken, ducks, and geese. Not a lot of cases. Then we're going to the 2017-2018 season. It is a season, meaning that mainly the season is the autumn of one year, then winter time, and early spring of the next year. So because of that, it is the season. And it is very interesting. We will see that in 2023, the season doesn't exist anymore. So it is a season. We have some outbreaks, usually the stars meaning wild birds and the circles meaning domestic birds or domestic poultry. And also the triangles, when you find it, it is mainly captured wild birds. So it was in 2016, 17, 18, so not too huge. They are circulation, but not so huge. In 2018, 2019, you see just very few cases in, let's say, few countries. Then in 2020, in the autumn, we have, let's say, more intensive circulation, especially in the northern western part of the Europe, and both in wild birds and in domestic poultry. So it is only the autumn of, let's say, 2020. And you see here the season 2020 and 21. So it is the autumn of 20, winter, and the spring of 21st. And you see here the huge number of outbreaks, both in domestic and wild birds, especially in the central and northern and western part of the Europe. So it was quite huge. It is 2021. Then 21-22. Now the red circles meaning domestic poultry, and the wild birds are here presented in the intensity of the gray color of the territory. So more gray, it meaning more intensive circulation, less gray or white areas, meaning no or very low circulation of the virus. It was a situation in season 2021-22. 22-23, again, we have also quite good, let's say, intensive circulation of the virus. And it is the spring of 2023. As you see here, regarding it is just cases in March and April 2023. So huge number of cases. This is in wild birds. This is in domestic poultry in the same time. Also, what is happening, it is now the June, September, it is summertime. Usually summertime, the virus is not so, let's say, don't like to be on the sun. But usually we don't have cases and not exhibit in this region the cases in that time of the year. But you see summertime and you see how high number of cases are present in the Europe. Something happened. Also in domestic poultry. Then we have the let's say end of the 2023 in the, let's say, the spring of 2024. Again, the intensity of the virus circulation are all the time present, almost the same intensity or even more and more. And what was interesting, for example, in wild birds, as previously and usually the natural host of the virus is different kind of species of waterfowl. So it's meaning ducks, geese, etc. But here and they are colored by the blue color here in the map. So this is outbreaks in waterfowl. But you see here on the north part of the Europe and western part of the Europe, so some besides this orange part, the orange thing are raptors. So they exhibit the clinical sign and they're dying both as for West Nile virus, also from influenza. But the green, starting the green color raising up, and it is the outbreaks in the colony-based seabirds. So avian influenza was previously also found in, let's say, in seabirds, but from time to time, and not in very, let's say, huge epidemic. And now we have a huge epidemic in let's say, in colony-based seabirds. So it is a situation, let's say, the beginning of the 2024. Also the situation in domestic poultry, so huge epidemic also in that time of the year. And what I wish to show you now here in this slide is two graphs. Okay, upper graph is regarding the domestic poultry. It is in this moment not so interesting, but the lower graph is the situation of wild birds. As you see, the blue ones, the blue, let's say, part is quite high. It is a waterfall. And you see about in the middle of, let's say, 22, the green colors start to raising up. So it is the more evident and more evident in more outbreak cases in seabirds, in colony-based seabirds. So almost in 2023, in the summertime, you have almost the only outbreaks in birds was found in the colony-based seabirds. So it was one change of the virus that was not, let's say, usual at that time. Okay, later on, it is the, let's say, end of 2024, beginning of 2025. So it is like right now or a few months before. So the intensity of the virus circulation exists. It's not changing. It is quite evident and quite intensive. But what I wish to show you now, we go to the end of, let's say, until today, and it is the second thing that is very found interesting for the last few years of the avian influenza circulation is a number of the cases in mammals. Here you see on the slide the cases between 2016 2023, or let's say the species of mammals that was infected in different parts of the world. Especially you see the America, South and Northern part of America, and in Europe. You see in Europe it is a lot of cases. Mainly it is let's say sea mammals and let's say the sea carnivores, but also it is the terrestrial carnivores was affected by the virus. And when you're talking about Europe, you see here on the slide of Europe in 2022 2023. How much or what the number of outbreaks was detected in all the different kind of the parts of the Europe, and what different kind of the species of the carnivores was, let's say, clinically evidently detected the presence of the virus and even dying for the virus infection. So it is something that is quite also new, or something that was interesting for avian influenza, changing that more and more mammals was affected by the virus, and the culmination maybe of that whole story was in the United States in the beginning 2024. Then when you realize that some unexplained disease in cattle from the beginning of the year was later on, even at the end of the March, confirmed that was caused by the avian influenza H1N1 subtype. That's previously, as I know, don't know to affect the cattle, the domestic cattle as a domestic species. And first human cases was detected in 1st of April. By the end of April, it was detected that the virus is, let's say, shedding by the milk. So it was a huge, let's say, alarm about the food safety. On the beginning of the May, so it's from the beginning of 2024 until the beginning of the May, in the United States already 9 countries was, and let's say about 36 species or herds was found infected with the virus. Also in that time, a very, very, let's say, detailed study was done on genetic level of the isolates, and it was found that two things, that the virus is inactivated by the pasteurization of the milk, so it is not a problem in the markets. And one side, another side thing is that it is not showing evidence that could be transmitted from human to human. Regarding some epitopes, I will not go more deeply in that. But anyway, and it was the risk was putting a lower, so it is let's say moderate or mild risk now from human infection. But anyway, those people who coming in close contact with infected animals, including other animal species, cats, dogs, and I don't know, rats, and etc., become infected and even exhibit clinical signs and have a health problem with that. So it is not such a very, let's say, nothing. It is something that happened. Here is the slide, let's say, about the story about avian influenza in cattle. It is found that could be human infected from the cattle, but not transmitted between the humans. Also, as I mentioned, other animal species could be infected, and also birds, domestic and wild. So it will see what the story until the end will be with this. It is, let's say, regarding the mammals situation in 2023-2024, so it's about 1 year, reported cases of the presence of avian influenza in mammals. It is a report of the ex-OIE, World Health of World Organization of Animal Health. And as you see here, it is the, let's say, Americas is red one, Europe is blue, Asia is green. And it is the color. Anyway, you see here that Asia is almost not present at all regarding the outbreaks in mammals. But you see here in Europe also, it's very quite big, and especially in the United States or Americas regarding the presence of the virus in cows population. This is just a few data about the presence of the avian influenza and the subtypes that infect humans, most of them, because there are some other subtypes also infecting humans, but these ones are, let's say, more obvious. And you have here the situation that, for example, H5N1 until from 97 until today that have more than almost 1,000 cases and almost 50% are dead, exhibit like a dead outcome. Here is the situation of the H5N1 virus circulation for reports in humans, and you see here the from 1997 until 2025. You see here in 2024 the number of cases in the United States regarding this blue one regarding the outbreak of the virus in cows. Here the another one is regarding the H5N6. It's also found in 2014 until today. There are about 90 cases, and almost all of the cases was in China. Just one was out of China. And the next one, what was most important to humans, let's say, it is the H9N2. It is mainly found in children's, very young children's. And you see here that from the beginning, first reported cases in 98 until today, it is a quite huge circulation of intensive circulation from 2015 until today. So it is in all 10 countries. So it's raising up. In Serbia, some testing was done, especially in 2020, 2021 to 2022. Besides the ongoing program of surveillance of avian influenza, there are some projects that was done at the time on the avian influenza. You see here on the slide, let's say, number of different kind of species of birds that was collected, and it was see the locations of those birds that was collected and the presence of the virus in those areas. I can just in that time for 2021 to 22 show you just for example a few cases in the northern part of the country. It is outbreaks. It is mostly from swans, and there are some cases in Maldak. But what was very interesting, it is the same situation in the whole Europe. It is let's say in the end of spring 2021. Until then, we have the H5N8 subtype. And that subtype belongs to the clade 2.4.4b. And until that time, starting with the end of 2021 in Serbia, all the cases that raising up was H5N1. And those cases are also belong to the same clade, but different subtype. Both viruses on those two clades, or the same clade, so by subtypes H5N8 and subtype H5N1 exhibit was let's say regarding the changing of the virus on the territory of Europe, and from Europe starting to spread all over the world and very shortly spread all over the world, both virus subtypes. And the previous ones are come mainly from the Asia. Anyway, I will just very fast pass this for months. It was monthly data, so it was in March 2021. You see on the left side, let's say the legend and different kind of subtypes during also domestic poultry and the wild birds. So in March, it was the situation with that. July 21, September 21, October 21, November 21, December 21. So we have exhibit some let's say cases in private zoos, in backyards, but and also the intensity of the circulation in wild birds starting to raising up. January 22, February 22, March, April 22, and then May, November, March 23. You see the number of cases raising up October 23, November, and at the end, December 23. So it is the, let's say, the situation in the circulation in the area where we found positives or found the outbreaks of the avian influenza. It is the, let's say, situation in September, October 2024. When we are looking at the season 2022-2023 and the season 23-24, you see here on the slide the difference. It is the most obvious and more intensive circulation in any way. So regarding the number of districts, the number of cases, number of affected species, and etc., etc. And it is something that is, let's say, are the real situation and now exhibit the emerged situation in the whole Europe. What could be, let's say, concluded? It is not conclusions, it is more gaps and needs that I think that is interesting more or less to the whole Europe. So strengthening the concept of One Health integrated surveillance system in the veterinary public health sector based on legislation is very, very necessary in all countries. Also establish a common database of zoonotic events and zoonotic agents related to the public health, veterinary, agricultural sectors, so that integrated analysis can be done on early warning, early detection, and risk management. Also, to develop a national plan for zoonotic epidemics, even to be included in the national generic preparedness plan. Then strengthening the links between the surveillance system in public health and veterinary sectors regarding to systemic exchange of high-quality data during routine surveillance and crisis events. Develop SOPs for communication. Then develop a national plan for integrated vector control, because in a lot of countries, especially in Serbia, it is a quite problem, as well as strengthening the laboratory capacity, especially in the field of zoonotic diseases. I think that it is something that we need in the whole Europe, and it is all the time.
Okay, so now we're moving to bacterial zoonoses, and we're supposed to give insight into zoonotic threats that are undercover at the moment. And I want to talk about Brucellosis, Q fever, Leptospirosis, and Borreliosis, which are, I think, worldwide diseases. But I also inserted, without Stefan knowing, Leishmania as a parasitic disease that I think is really emerging one. So I will just go right into it, just to show you in regards to other people that are probably not from Europe, just to know that Balkan area is like from middle to south of Europe, and it's between Asia and Europe, to say, or between Africa and Europe somehow. So it's always in the middle. And let's go straight to the diseases. This geographic overview was just to have an idea why this is going this way. So brucellosis, when we talk about brucellosis, it's usually about Brucella bovis, Brucella melitensis, and Brucella suis, which are very contagious, of course, zoonotic diseases, but they're mostly under control in in most of the countries, because they are obligatory for reporting. They have been there for many years. They are very vicious zoonotic diseases, and all the governments are trying to get them under control. We had in Serbia very heavy stamping out in 2006, where we killed really a lot of animals. And from that time, we have annual programs that follow up Brucella in cattle, sheep, and swine. But there are still some cases occurring in Bosnia and Herzegovina, North Macedonia, Kosovo, and southern parts of Serbia. And that's that goes very rarely for ruminants, and a few years ago we had it in pigs. So there are still in our region, not only in Serbia, but also in the surrounding countries, there are still contacts of domestic animals with wildlife. There are still backyard breeding of mostly swine, and there are rarely human cases occurring still. So it's like a, let's say, stable disease at the moment. But today, we're more interested in Brucellosis and Brucella canis. They're kind of different brucelloses. Brucella ovis is not considered a zoonotic, but it affects reproductive tracts of rams, causing epididymitis and abortions or perinatal mortality in sheep or ewes. And therefore, that brings economic losses to the farmers. In Serbia, there is, again, obligative annual control in breeding rams. And it's present here for the last decade, for sure. In the last 3 years, I just took out data from our system that we have for following the results. This is for the region which is under our jurisdiction of our institute. And there are 7% of positive rams on average, which means that 1 year it's higher, the other year is lower. And I think that this year it has been lower than any years before. Some years before, when we did research, when we started looking into Brucellosis, it went over 20%. But Brucella canis is a zoonotic disease. There is no obligation for control anywhere, and I think anywhere in Europe also. If I'm wrong, please tell me in the chat that I'm wrong. I would really like to know, but I don't think anybody's paying attention to Brucella canis within the country. Especially during traveling. So there are a lot of dogs traveling here and there, either for like touristic traveling or over to being sold or purchasing dogs from this part of the world. So at some point, dog shelters from Europe made it obligative to have a dog controlled for Brucella canis when they're importing them. This is not something that country has prescribed. This is something that dog shelters made as an obligative condition for importing dogs. The situation in Serbia, I can't see from the slide because it's there's something covering my slide, doesn't matter. I hope you can see it. But we have over 11% during the last 2.5 years. We have over 11% of dogs that were seropositive to Brucella canis. There are a few with clinical symptoms. They're mostly just dogs that are examined because of the traveling. But this percentage is not something that we should look over and say, who cares? That's my personal opinion. Q fever is also present in almost the whole world. In cattle and sheep, it causes abortions, and in humans, a pneumonia-like disease, which is a bit harder to overcome with. Sometimes it is considered as tick-borne disease because the pathogen was found in ticks. But when we research ticks, we can rarely find the pathogen. And when we do, it's in really small percentage. So it can be considered as a tick-borne disease, but much more frequently, the infection happens during the abortion via abortion material, and then especially endangering veterinarians and farm animal owners or workers on the farm or whoever is close to when the abortion happens. Most of the countries from this region have some kind of governmental programs to follow up on the disease. And sometimes it's even with the One Health approach. Like in our region, we have a very good communication with the human department, and we exchange information. And when there is a outbreak in humans, they look together with us. We try to find the source of the infection. Our region is endemic for Q fever for many years back, especially our northern region of Serbia, and it is constantly present in animals, and sometimes, like every few years, there is some human outbreak. The pathogen can be transferred by aerosols, or it can stay in dust or stray on the farm for a very long time. Of course, the ones that are close to the abortion event. And non-reported abortions are the main problem. There is an obligation to report every abortion in the country, but there are, of course, many times non-reported ones, and they can be the source of the pathogen. Seropositivity is not a sign of infection, we all know that, but of course it indicates the presence of the pathogen in the surroundings. So we need to pay attention, and by our annual program we control breeding rams, and we also control all the reported abortions. While researching for this presentation, I ran into an interesting study in Bulgaria, which I wanted to share with you, that was published in 24. You can see the authors on the picture, and that was about seropositivity to Coxiella burnetii in veterinary students. So there were just ordinary students, probably having some practice either on farms or at university, with university animals. And the endpoint PCR detected almost 6% of blood samples as positive in students. And then antibodies for Coxiella burnetii phase 2 IgG were detected in over 21%. So that was quite interesting to me, as these students are not veterinarians yet. So you can only imagine what would happen if we tested the veterinarians working on farms. Leptospirosis is one of the really most interesting diseases, I would say, ever from bacterial world. There are numerous strains all over the world, and it's zoonotic disease. It's present in the Balkans as an endemic region in the whole region for humans and animals, usually connected with rodents and sometimes with infected still water. Rodents are usually the connection for infections in animals. Jaundice and kidney failure are the most frequent symptomatology, but there are many more symptoms that can happen, including abortions also. Therefore, we also have leptospirosis in the palette of diseases that we look for when the abortions occur. So we also have annual program for it, for the cases of the abortion, and also in the blood of swine. In humans, way of infection with infected water is mostly frequent with fishermen. So when we have humans come to the clinic, they usually ask them, "Are you a fisherman?" Why? Because they stand in dirty waters sometimes for a long time, but there has to be an entrance in the skin. It's not just the water that brings the pathogen through your skin. You have to have a leisure in the skin so that the pathogen can have an entry to the organism. Now, leptospirosis in dogs is something that is also interesting. Why? Because it's not under control. The vaccination of the dogs is not obligative, it's recommended, same as like distemper or parvovirus or so. So it's just recommended, and usually because it's in the same vaccine as the diseases that attack only puppies, the owners of the dogs usually think that they're not in obligation to vaccinate the dogs when they're older. So usually after 3 or 5 years of age, they stop the vaccination. Leptospirosis in dogs occurs most frequently after contact with rodents, but it can also happen if they go into the infected waters for a swim or something. And the analysis is obligative only for dogs that are traveling to Australia. I'm talking now from the Serbian perspective. So there is no obligation unless the veterinarian has a suspicion for leptospirosis. There is no obligation to test the dogs in any other cases. And dogs can shed pathogens through their urine for a long time, even after recovery, even after the treatment. And it can be for months, maybe sometimes over a year, which puts in danger again the veterinarians, and sometimes the veterinarians don't even know that dog has been sick or something, and they come into contact with their urine. So then again, we come to the same problem, and then also it goes for the owners of the dog. Rodents are something that we study very often, I think, in all of the countries. And during the last few years, the prevalence in rodents, any kind of rodents, in several countries was 10 to over 20%. By now we're talking about PCR. And the research we have done in one type of rodents was even over 50%. So in rodents, I think you can't not find leptospirosis, only if you don't look for it. Now, Borrelia is something that I think, hear about every day, especially in Serbia. It's constantly present in the region, but there is no obligatory reporting of the disease. I think it's the similar situation in most of the countries in the region. So there is no precise data in humans or animals. There is no obligation either in humans or in animals for reporting. And therefore, we decided to monitor the ticks, because that is something that we can monitor all the time. That's what we do. We look for the pathogen within the ticks. And during the period of 23 to 25 to up to today, the percentage of ticks that were positive for the presence of Borrelia burgdorferi by real-time PCR was 33%. But this was in ticks that were taken off humans. So this is from the ticks that were actually in contact with humans. And all of these humans were, of course, monitored later and so on. But that is 33. That means every third tick is infected. When you look into the ticks in nature, so the not engorged ones, the infection rate is about 10 to 28%. So I would say that there is a true risk when you come to Serbia from a borreliosis, because while going into the nature where you can find ticks, but today you can find them also in schoolyards, in playgrounds, in yards of people's homes. So it's not only in the woods or somewhere far away from the cities. Therefore, we have a whole, let's say, action that is a project. We are trying to develop in mobile application that will help people to know more about borreliosis and how to protect themselves. Okay, and we come to the intruder. I hope not everyone left so far. I inserted Leishmaniasis here, as I think it's a real emerging disease. If you remember the map from the beginning, Leishmania was known as Mediterranean disease for years, and today it has been found in, apart from Serbia, the pathogen has been found in Hungary, in Romania, and probably even more northern countries. So it's not a Mediterranean disease anymore. In Serbia, we have confirmed the presence of the vector many years ago. The presence of the pathogen in the vectors was also confirmed. The presence of seropositive dogs was also confirmed. And then later on, we had seropositive dogs with clinical symptoms, which you can see on these two pictures. These are original pictures from our patients. And then the presence of imported Leishmaniasis in dogs from Montenegro, Greece, Albania with clinical symptoms. And then the last but not least, imported disease in humans. We still don't have autochthon Leishmaniasis in humans here, and hopefully will not have, but people do come from their travels during the summer, and they come back with Leishmania. Why I wanted this? Because I wanted to tell you this, because there are absolutely no analysis done in whole Europe among dogs which are traveling, which I mentioned before. Only when they go overseas, into the countries overseas, there is a demand for Leishmaniasis. But within Europe, and we know how many countries have Leishmaniasis on a daily basis, there is no obligation to analyze the dogs and to control them. Yes, there is therapy. Yes, there are preparations for the repellents and the skin drops for protection of the dogs. But I personally think that there has to be much more control and much more analysis when dogs are traveling. There was more than 10 years ago, there was a paper in Germany that was talking about this, about importing dogs from the Balkans and about the diseases that were found on them in German laboratories. So I think that we should keep an eye on Leishmania. Hopefully, there is hope. There is PREPARE-TID, as you all heard about during these webinars, and which is a project funded by EU. And we're trying to find a prompt way to react to any emerging disease, including all the ones that are mentioned, with new equipment, new kits, new way of really quickly responding to any emergency of infectious diseases. Thank you very much. I hope I wasn't too long.